Okay, so I was at the grocery store the other day and I overheard someone talking about how satisfied they were that now the pro-gun lobby cannot use the statement that even though cars outnumber guns, and that's not their, well, no, I take that back. Even though cars aren't meant to kill people, they still kill more people than guns do. Well, now that's changed. And so I wanted to look into it a little bit. And what I discovered, and really the crux of this video, is not necessarily pro or against gun, because I'm not going to advocate my position. I'm not going to state my position, rather. It's always curious how people, regardless of the side you're on, will always skew the information to suit their needs. And that's the biggest tragedy, because then we don't even come to the truth of a matter. And we all lose in the end. So, digging into how it relates to guns in this topic. So, just to expose that trend, that big thing that now guns kill more people than cars do, when used to it was the opposite. So, I looked and I found a website. I'll try to put it in annotation. Truthaboutguns.com. And the article is "Comparing Car and Gun Fatalities is Misleading and Irrelevant." And what they state, paraphrased, is that yes, guns do kill people. However, a lot of the statistics that the gun control lobby, the anti-gun lobby, will do is simply pull the simple numbers of gun homicides. Well, a death by the use of a gun, without extrapolating the numbers on the context of how that death occurred, because there's several scenarios, a few of which are suicide, a defensive use where, say, a female gun holder shot and killed a rapist to prevent a crime, or killed someone to prevent a murder, or some other means that would arguably legitimize its use. And then there's accidents. And then there's outright, violent crime, murders, manslaughters, things of that nature. So, out of the total number that they would only give you one set of numbers, you have four subcategories, which one would advocate the use of guns, one would advocate, hey, we just need to get educated about them and do a little bit better, and some would have a back and forth to getting rid of them altogether, and then one would say we need to get rid of them altogether. So, and pertains to the motor vehicle comparison, this article uses the examples by Josh Sugarman, and they contest his results. And he provides this list, and he says, just a couple of the states he talked about. Virginia, there was 836 gun deaths and only 827 motor vehicle deaths. More guns killed more people than cars. In Indiana, 735 gun deaths and 715 motor vehicle deaths. Well, they break it down. And this article says, well, what were the causes of these deaths? Were they suicides, homicides, or accidents? Because it says here, we know that suicide rates are independent of the method, meaning if you don't have guns, they'll find a knife, they'll find a rope, they'll pour gas on their head, they'll do something. So as far as guns being a tool of malicious, horrible, people killing each other and we need to get rid of them, you got to remove the suicide factor. So just on that, in the states that the Josh Sugarman guy listed here, Alaska, well, I'll say the previous states, Washington goes from 623 gun deaths to only 118 gun accidents and homicides, and of course 580 motor vehicle deaths to 574 motor vehicle accidents and homicides. And the rest of the numbers show the same pattern. The gun accidents and homicides, the gun deaths when annotated as accidents or homicide, and the same as a motor vehicle accident and homicide, the number shifts drastically because you remove someone taking their own life. And that's the information they won't give you. And that's the sadness of it. And the article goes into more details, and you can check that out if you so choose. And so, seeing that, when I somehow got into another website, and it's called Neon Tommy, Doing the Math on Guns. And I'll try to put an annotation on there as well. And he goes about the numbers on guns in our country, but also in a more worldly perspective. And he has a very lengthy article. It's a very interesting read. I would suggest that you check it out. I'll try to put the link up if I can. I'm not really good at this video editing stuff. And he has this graph. And it basically shows that gun ownership has no correlation to murder rates. How? And it shows many, many countries in this graph. And it has, on one side it says, rack from 0 to 100. And that's guns per 100 people. And then you have, going this way, homicides per 100,000 people. Okay? And you have a lot of countries that are down here in the bottom where you have no murders and no guns. Okay? Well, USA is right near 90, like close to 90 guns per 100 people. Well, you would expect that it would be also way over here on the high murder rate per 100 people, but it's not. It's right there in line with Yemen, Sweden, France, Iceland, Australia, Turkey, Japan, a lot of fairly modern countries. And of course, this is a graph, so it doesn't give you a very specific number and, 1 to 2 people versus, 1 to 3,000. So it's a loose graph, but it gives you the big picture. But here's an interesting point. There's one dot to one side. It's El Salvador. Less than 10 guns per 100 people, but looks like about 74 homicides per 100,000 people. What does that tell you? Well, check out the website and look at the graph, and it'll tell you that. Also, it talks about a chart that says shows homicides, which is just a death, so it's not even breaking down the other 3 parts that I mentioned before. Homicides per capita in wealthy countries compared to gun ownership per capita. And it has a graph that says average non-gun homicides per 100,000 in the years 95 to 2011. Average gun homicides, period, per 100,000 in the same time period. And then guns per 100,000 people. So, in the USA, you have about 95 guns per 100 people, but just about half of it is gun homicides. Of all of the homicides, about only half are from the result of a gun. And you see the same ratio, but that is with our country having close to 90 guns per 100 people. I think the average is about 87 guns per people for 100 people. So what it tells you is that killers in countries where civilians tend to be armed show a slight preference for guns, but just as in the first scatter plot, gun ownership and murder rates show no relationship. Swiss and American murderers use guns because they're conveniently available. South Korea and British murderers don't have a pistol in the closet, so they take a knife from the drawer or a rope and try to choke them. Either way, killers are going to kill. And those are the details that a lot of people have to consider. And it's a tragedy that either side of the issue will pull a gimmicky punchline to satisfy their need. It's a confirmation bias setup. And that's the biggest tragedy, I think, second to that of the people dying themselves, be it from a malicious gun act to an accident. So I'll try to put those links in there. Disagree with who you want. That's cool. That's the beauty of the freedom of speech in this country. In other countries, they'd cut your head off if you're lucky. Maybe they cut off your hands if you disagree with them, but hey, it's what we got. Anyway, take it easy. Thanks for your time.